Hi there, and thanks for joining us for this Wheel and Anchor webinar on our trip to Ireland, the Emerald Isle. This webinar covers our itinerary, which begins in Dublin and heads around to spots down in the southwest, Killarney, up through County Clare, and ending in Galway. We then have an optional extension program which covers the northwest of Ireland, as well as Northern Ireland and Belfast. For those of you who are regulars to Wheel and Anchor webinars, you can scroll down below the description in our YouTube video to find the chapters and jump forward to the map and the day-by-day itinerary. Let me just say a bit about who we are here at Wheel and Anchor. We're not just another tour company. We're a community of travelers from all across the country, and we appreciate a different and a bit more authentic approach to travel. We welcome anyone who understands that most organized travel has become kind of a canned experience. If you're somebody that wants to be herded around from one place to the next and on a hectic schedule for every minute of your trip, then we're probably not for you. But if you appreciate the true camaraderie that arises from traveling with people just like you and having enough freedom and free time to go and explore on your own, then you've definitely come to the right place. We have a couple of key objectives for everyone who travelers on our trips, all of our members at Wheel and Anchor. And first of all, we talk about being well traveled, which for me means a little more than just ticking off items on a bucket list, which is not to say that there's anything wrong with a bucket list. We all have them, myself included. But it's more about getting into experiences that change how you see things and how the world works, and having experiences that keep that flame of curiosity burning bright. And we do that by diving into local cultures as opposed to just skimming the surface. That requires taking more time, which our trips generally do. And all that allows you to get a little bit of a better grip on what's going on in the world. And in doing that, you open your mind and your heart to humanity and to traditions and cultures and all the places that we visit. And all that being said, the second objective we have is that you become well connected, and first and foremost that means making friends that you'd want to go on another trip with, building a network of people who are travel enthusiasts, who again have that like-minded travel passion for travel, and creating connections with not just the people that you travel with, but all of the people that you meet along the way. And this, at the end of the day, has you feel like a true citizen of the world. And that's kind of our vision of being well traveled and well connected. And if you think of other people in your midst, other friends that you have who embody this, you might well call them true citizens of the world as well. Doing all this is quite a lofty goal and requires a team of people who are dedicated to their roles, and that's definitely what we have at Wheel and Anchor. By way of introduction, and I won't certainly not going to talk about the whole team, but my name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I curate all of the trips that we have here, and the person who's maybe most important to you is our senior trip specialist, Paula Zarnick. She's the one who typically picks up your email or your phone call and tries to answer all of your questions, and make sure that you have all the information you need to consider joining us on one of our trips. Today's webinar is all about giving a little introduction of Ireland and showing you, obviously somebody who's interested in Ireland, maybe you have a family history or connection there, maybe you just want to go looking for leprechauns. But either way, I'm going to be your digital guide today, and I'm going to show you where we're going, why we're going there, in the hopes that you'll be inspired to join us on this trip. This trip has fundamentally two parts, with the main leg focused on Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. We begin in Dublin, where we spend several nights in the capital. It's worthy of more time than most tours offer to Ireland. And from there, we travel overland down by coach via Cork and Blarney Castle to Killarney, which is the gateway to the Ring of Kerry in southwestern Ireland. We then head north up the west coast, County Clare, the Cliffs of Moher, and the first part of our trip will culminate in Galway, Ireland. From there, if that's enough for you, and certainly we'll have covered a lot of ground during that time, you either have the option to continue back to Dublin and onward from there, either back home, or alternatively, we have a second part of a trip, our optional post trip, where we go head from Galway further north to the northwest corner of the island. We cross over into Northern Ireland along the spectacular northern coast, Giant's Causeway, and end up in Belfast, a city which has evolved tremendously over the last 2 decades. What makes this trip particularly special is our local host and your guide for this trip, Paul Keeley. I first met Paul on our first adventure to Ireland some years ago. He's been leading our trips around the country ever since, and is a phenomenal storyteller, a true Irishman. And all of our members who've had the pleasure of traveling with Paul so far have absolutely been delighted by the way that he has explained and brought to light all of the intricacies of the country of Ireland. So let me jump right in and share with you exactly what you can expect on this day by day itinerary through Ireland. Our trip begins in Dublin, the capital of Ireland, and it's a fairly easy place to get to. There's nonstop flights, typically from Toronto and Montreal, depending on the time of the year and the airline. But you can certainly connect via London or via Iceland, again, depending on where it is exactly you originate from in Canada. Arriving into Dublin, you'll be met with a city which is an awesome juxtaposition between old and new. A lot has transpired in this city in the last 20 years. The period where Ireland was the Celtic Tiger, lasting from the mid 90s until the latter part of the 2000s, is when it saw a tremendous economic expansion. And as a result, the city of Dublin in particular exploded with modern new buildings and a lot of things to inspire both locals and travelers. On our first day, we don't have a lot planned. We let you settle into the hotel, relax, and you can easily walk around because we'll be in a very central location and discover some of the sites on its own. At the very least, perhaps head into Temple Bar, the area of town that is so well known for all of its pubs, its live music, the entertainment center of the city. On our first full day in town, we'll meet Paul, who is going to take us around and show us some of the beautiful green spaces and cultural treasures that highlight the city of Dublin. Our first full day in Dublin will have us be shown around, among other things, St. Stephen's Green, which is a huge 22-acre urban park in the center of Dublin and houses a number of wonderful spots to hang out and relax, a spot you may want to return to during your leisure time. There's a statue of James Joyce, and nearby the Trinity College, which is, of course, Ireland's famous university, and also home to the Book of Kells, an 800-year-old manuscript that talks about the monastic history of Ireland. After all that is said and done, you've got some hours to your own. We'll gather to head out for an Irish night, which is a lot of fun. It combines storytelling, music, dance, and will be a great introduction to the lively art scene that the city is so well known for. On the third day of our trip, we'll have a chance to check out Ireland's food scene with a gastronomic tour of Dublin and a little more time in the afternoon to explore a bit more on your own. We'll start off by exploring what the food scene is all about. And of course, we don't often think about Ireland as a foodie destination. In fact, some people relate to it as, potatoes, 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 but there is actually a lot more to it than that. They have some delicious artisanal stews and cheeses and a lot of other tasty treats that we'll find out more about during the morning. We'll end off at the Guinness Storehouse, the headquarters of the world famous brand of stout that we all know and perhaps love. Not a fan myself, but certainly if you are a Guinness drinker, this is the Shrine, a museum, a multi-story complex that is always a hit with visitors. You'll have the evening at leisure to go out and explore some of the great restaurants that the city has to offer. On today's excursion, we'll take our first foray outside the city to the area known as County Wicklow. There'll be two spots on our visit today, one of them being the Glendalough settlement, which is a 6th century monastic site with a 34-meter high round tower, which has a great window into the early Christian history of Ireland. And following that, we'll head over to Powerscourt, which is actually one of the world's top 10 gardens, so says National Geographic, which has 47 acres of absolutely spectacular landscape grounds. The rolling hills and countryside in this part of Wicklow are absolutely gorgeous. Today, our excursion takes us into the countryside just to the east of Dublin on a little peninsula called Howth Head. The coastline around here is absolutely spectacular. It pales in comparison to what we're going to see later on in the trip when we get to the west coast of Scotland. But nevertheless, there's be a chance to walk along the picturesque harbor, maybe spot some seals along the way. But the highlight of the day will undoubtedly be Malahide Castle, which is one of Ireland's oldest castles. Been inhabited by the same family, the Talbots, for over 800 years. It houses an amazing collection of period furniture, portraits of the family history, all those things that you could expect from a castle of this era. We'll have some delicious fish and chips in town before we head back into Dublin for the late afternoon. We'll say goodbye to Dublin, check out of our hotel, and make our way for the first longer journey of our trip, heading southwest to, first of all, Cork, and then ending up in Killarney. We'll have a total drive today of around 4.5 to 5 hours, with the first leg to Cork being about 3. Arriving into Cork, we'll have a chance to look around and learn a little bit about this fascinating little city, which is actually the food capital of Ireland. So you'll have a chance to stop for lunch at one of the eateries that Paul suggests. After that, we'll head to the famous Blarney Castle, where you'll have a chance to kiss the famous stone and get 7 years of good luck and good health. And then later that afternoon, we will head down to Killarney. We'll have dinner at a local restaurant and get our first chance to witness what this lively little town is all about. We'll have 5 nights in Killarney, which sounds like a lot, but it'll give you a good chance to get to know the town and all of the beautiful surroundings. And part of what makes it surrounding are the myriad of lakes in the region around Killarney and Killarney National Park. We're going to start off our visit here by visiting 2 very special buildings, the first of which, Ross Castle, a 15th century tower house that's on the edge of one of those lakes, Loch Lean. Of course, in Ireland, a lake is referred to as a loch, spelled Lough. And this first stop will give you some insight into medieval Irish life. Later on, after lunch, we'll head over to Muckross Abbey, which is another 15th century building, a Franciscan friary, which has a very unique yew tree growing in the middle of the central courtyard, and some lovely gardens surrounding it. That evening, we'll head over to Kate Carney's cottage, which is located at the entrance to the so-called Gap of Dunloe. We'll pass through it when we do our trip around the Ring of Kerry. And at this spot, this is one of the best known places where you can experience traditional Irish hospitality and music and have a chance to dance the night away in a 150-year-old Irish-run family establishment. Today's full day trip will take us around the 180-kilometer long Ring of Kerry, one of the most popular and photographically interesting spots in the whole of Ireland. Along the way, we'll have a number of fascinating stops. First of all, there's a spot called Kerry Bog Village, which is kind of like a pioneer village, a bit of a glimpse into life in Ireland during the famine times back in the 19th century. Another popular stop will be the town of Waterville, a lovely little coastal spot that was visited by Walt Disney back in the 50s, and he recommended it to his friend Charlie Chaplin, who ended up coming back year after year with his family. So there's quite a close connection between Mr. Chaplin and the town of Waterville. As we continue to the west, we'll stop at Ladies View. This is known as one of the most photographed spot, definitely an Instagram occasion for those of you that partake in that platform. But it really does showcase the beauty of Killarney and the national park. We'll make our way back. The trip will take in a full day. You'll probably be a little tired from the excursion, but nevertheless, it'll be one of the most rewarding of our whole trip. On this day's excursion, we'll head out on another peninsula, this time the Dingle Peninsula, often left off by many tourists, but definitely the off the beaten track destination that has to be part of a wheel and anchor itinerary. From my own experience, I think that the coastal views along Dingle are even more picturesque than those of Kerry. But of course, that's a matter of opinion. They have some spectacular beaches along the way, the most notable of which being Inch Beach. And you'll have a chance to go and get those toes wet, although it's probably a little too chilly for swimming. The area is known as a place where you can experience Gaeltacht, which is the authentic Irish language and traditions in this part of the country where they still use those in common dialogue. We'll visit Slayhead, which has the most rugged coastline and incredible views out to the Skellig Islands in the distance. These are the ones that are famous from their appearance in the film Star Wars. Lots of tremendous views to be had as we return later in the afternoon from our full day adventure around Dingle. As typical with all of our itineraries, we've built in a full free day for you to explore Killarney at your leisure. How you spend your day is, of course, entirely up to you. If you are quite ambitious and adventurous, you might head out to a local sheep farm at Kisani, where you can see sheepdog demonstrations and witness how a herd of over 1,000 sheep are managed and used for their various products. You might stay closer to home and just wander the streets of Killarney, checking out some of the pubs and cafes or maybe those shops for a little souvenir. You could also hop in a taxi for a short ride out to Egado, where you'll have some beautiful views over Killarney National Park and all of its lakes. We'll head off on the next leg of our journey, leaving Killarney, heading north, where we'll cross the Shannon estuary by a short ferry ride, and in a total of around 3 hours, we'll pass into County Clare. Along the way, we'll stop at one of the most scenic parts of Ireland, the 14-kilometer stretch of coastline known as the Cliffs of Moher. Here, the cliffs rise up to over 200 meters above sea level with amazing views over the Atlantic Ocean out to the Aran Islands, which we'll visit a little bit later. And they're also home to over 30,000 pairs of seabirds. This is a popular spot for anyone visiting the west coast of Ireland. Later in the day, we'll also get a chance to witness a real live sheepdog demonstration at the site of an ancient stone fort before checking into our hotel for the evening. And today we'll head out to those very Aran Islands. They are three rocky islands that guard the mouth to Galway Bay. Our ferry ride will take us to the largest and most populated of the islands, Innismore. And here, our main site will be Donangosa, a prehistoric fort situated up on a cliff where there's no fences. It's a sheer drop down to the ocean, again, offering some beautiful views back to the Irish mainland. We'll head back in the afternoon and have a little time at leisure to enjoy this small and quaint town in the Irish countryside. Leaving Clare County and our charming little hotel, we'll head towards Galway, crossing the Burren. The Burren is actually a vast karst landscape, one of the largest in Europe. You can see from the photo here, it's a very stark limestone scenery that incorporates the cliffs of Moher and is part of a UNESCO geopark. Arriving into Galway city itself, we'll have a little orientation tour that'll take us from Eyre Square out to the little fishing village of Cladach. That is the place where the famous Cladach rings originate from and are still produced today and have been since the early 18th century. Many people of Irish heritage cherish these rings that have been produced there. And so if you're someone that has roots back in Ireland, it may be an interesting souvenir for you to pick up during the trip. Our last full day excursion of the main portion of our trip will take us through the Connemara National Park. The scenery here is again so different than what we will have experienced further south crossing the Burren. Connemara consists of grasslands, bogs, and heaths, another unique landscape. Our destination is Kylemore Abbey, which is an incredible 19th century castle that was turned into a Benedictine monastery and is beautifully set against a backdrop of mountains and lakes. Later that day, we head back into Galway for our final evening. With any luck, there'll be a trad performance. That's Irish dancing that was made so famous by Riverdance back in the 1980s. And of course, Galway is the home of trad dancing. And if there's a chance to catch one of the performances, you can be certain that we'll plan to do that. For those who choose to conclude with our main trip, we'll have a transfer directly from Galway back to Dublin Airport. And for those who haven't quite had enough, our trip will continue up the west coast to the northwesternmost part of Ireland and continuing over into Northern Ireland. We've got about 3 hours of driving today, passing from County Mayo up to County Sligo through some of the most beautiful scenery that Ireland has to offer. Along the way, we're going to make a couple of stops, first of which at Castlebar, where we'll find the National Museum of Country Life, set amongst the beautiful grounds of Turlough Park. We'll have a look around and get a bit of an insight into rural life in this part of Ireland in the latter part of the 19th century. We'll stop for lunch at a place that locals love called Horkins, which is set amongst some beautiful gardens. And by the latter part of the afternoon, we'll arrive into Donegal itself. On our full day excursion today, we'll spend some time looking at some of the traditional handicrafts made in the area and then visit one of the region's most spectacular scenic sites. After breakfast this morning, we head over to Cindy Graham Hand Weaving, where we're going to get a bit of an insight into the art of traditional Irish weaving. And from there, it's off to Hannah Hats. This is an iconic Irish hat maker, and we'll get a chance to go behind the scenes to learn about the history and how they produce these beautiful products. After lunch, it's off to Sliabh, which are the highest accessible sea cliffs in Europe, rivaling those that you'll find, rivaling certainly the cliffs of Moher and those found down in Portugal. Spectacular views are to be had here. There'll be still time in the late afternoon for us to explore Donegal itself and go out and find a fun little pub for some traditional local fare. Today we'll spend the day taking a deeper dive into the town of Donegal itself. In the morning, we'll first visit Donegal by sea. We'll head out on a local vessel known as the Water Bus. Comfy seating, beautiful views from the upper deck will give us a bit of a glimpse of the city from the sea. And on the way back, there is a lively cabaret show to entertain us. We'll then head over for lunch, following which we will get a visit of Donegal Castle. Originally built by the O'Donnell chieftain back in the 15th century, Sir Basil Brooke added a whole bunch of interesting furnishings and tapestries and Persian rugs in the 17th century, making it not only a very picturesque castle to visit from the outside, but to explore this diverse range of furnishings and decorations that you don't typically find in a castle like this in this part of Ireland. We bid adieu to Donegal this morning as we make our way from the Republic of Ireland across the border into Northern Ireland with a couple of key stops along the way. About an hour into our drive, as we hit the border, we'll pass into the town of Derry for a short visit. Derry, among other things, is the oldest walled city in Ireland, making it fascinating from a historical perspective. But perhaps more relevant is that it was at the heart of the so-called Troubles. This is the 3-decade-long period of violence in Northern Ireland. Many of us lived through that period and heard about all of the terrible events that occurred. And so we'll hear along the way a little bit more about those times in Irish history, as well as what things are like in modern day times between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. But our main highlight today will be stopping in at Giant's Causeway here. I'm quite proud of the picture here, which I took. This is legend has it that this was stepping stones created by the giant Fionn McCool, but of course, in reality, it was a volcanic eruption some 6 million years ago that created these unique hexagonal formations that sort of head out into the sea like stepping stones. After that, we'll see some of the other beautiful coastline of Northern Ireland before ending the day in Belfast, where we'll spend the last few days of our journey. We'll have a half day tour today exploring different sides of the city and gaining a little bit of understanding of how this city has so dramatically evolved since the end of the Troubles. Among the things that we'll see as we wander around the city are an incredible display of murals and street art, which depict both the loyalist and Republican side of the troubles which plagued Belfast for all those years. We'll also make a stop over at the Docklands, where the ship Titanic was built, and of course, not long after, had its untimely fate off the shores of Canada. Later on, you might want to take a wander through the botanic gardens of the city, which are quite beautiful, or visit the Cathedral Quarter, which is ironically the area where the cultural center is, or where all the pubs and live music can be found in Belfast. We'll have one last day totally at leisure to explore Belfast. You'll have a number of ideas that you'll have garnered from our wander around the previous day. If nothing else, you'll sample some of the delicious Irish fare. By this point, if we haven't had Irish stew, then it'll have to be on the menu. But I think many of those who are particularly interested in maritime history, specifically the Titanic, they have an incredible world-class exhibition that is all about the ill-fated ship. The city has an incredible art scene. And so there are a number of galleries and museums that will showcase what both the historical aspect of the art scene as well as the contemporary part of it has to offer. That evening, we will gather together one more time for our farewell dinner as we celebrate all of the great memories and fantastic photographs we'll have taken during our 3-week trip discovering the island of Ireland. We'll have to say farewell then, and everyone will have their own private transfers from our hotel to the airport for their onward journey or a return flight back to Canada. You can find all of the details about this itinerary by heading to our website. There's a link just below this video in the description. There you can also download our detailed trip itinerary, which gives you the specific day-by-day program that we have. And we also have a trip specific reference guide. That's our version of an FAQ, frequently asked questions, which will address many of the logistical issues that you may need in order to make a decision whether to join us on this trip. After you've digested all that information, of course, if you have any other questions or are interested in joining this trip, then please do drop us a note at the email address shown here. Of course, you're welcome to give us a call as well, and we'd be delighted for you to come and join us on this trip. Thanks for tuning in and watching our day-by-day itinerary of our trip around Ireland, the Emerald Isle. If you do have any comments or feedback, I'd be delighted to hear from you. And if you're interested in seeing more of our webinars about our upcoming trips, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and hope you'll join us on this amazing trip.